and welcome to all our listeners and viewers to this Critical Thinking Live. My name is Dharmendra Kanani, Chief Operating Officer and Chief Spokesperson at Friends of Europe. And this is one of our regular, episodes where we speak to leaders, influencers, thinkers, those who impact and influence our current reality of Europe, but also our future. It gives me the greatest pleasure to introduce Sapta. Sapta, who is head of Europe Tata Consultancy Services, and is here with me for the next 25 minutes or so to have a conversation about what does it mean for Europe to become much more digitalized, to improve its digital footprint. And I suppose the most important thing about this conversation with Sapta is to gain an industry perspective from a player that's from outside of Europe, someone that's gained a lot of traction in the UK and other markets in Europe and across the globe, has become an increasingly well-known name. That's Tata Consultancy Services, which is part of the Tata Group, an iconic Indian company that is shoring up markets all across the world. So it's the greatest pleasure to have you with us, Sapta. Thank you for being here.
It's really a pleasure for me to be here.
As you know, Europe has led in many ways the data privacy cycle with GDPR.
Yes.
It's not a place where digital unicorns are established. It's much better at establishing good R&D, but then other markets take it up and scale it. We know that it has a high ambition for a digital decade ahead, wants to increase its capacity, capability on digitalization across the board. And in this current tenure of the European Commission, what we all know, colleagues, is it has ramped up its work on creating the structure and capability for a digital single marketplace, for a Digital Services Act, and we're seeing regulation around AI being developed right now. So there's a mixture of how do you create the right context and conditions for competition in a market whilst making sure safety and security are at the heart of any development of a digitalized economy. So at the end of the day, this is about how does Europe prepare for a future which is entirely digital. So Sapta, tell me, if you're advising Ursula von der Leyen and her cabinet at the moment, who are pulling together their package for policy for the new mandate from next year onwards, what do you think their priorities should be?
First of all, as TCS, we are privileged to operate in about 21 countries in Europe, working with the leading enterprises across industries. And to some extent, our views are more reflecting the views of the industry that we work with, our customers across these sectors. I think, like you rightly pointed out, Europe has been on the forefront of regulation to ensure that there is a structure to everything that is done. We, of course, embraced many of those regulations. You talked about data protection and so on. I think while the framework exists, I think the key priorities that we need to have is on execution. How do we execute and develop more agility into the whole framework? Because companies need to now accelerate decisions, new technologies, new challenges are coming every few months, and how do they adapt to them? And to do that, while there is a regulatory framework in place, it is also important to provide a framework for people to act very quickly in response to these regulations. That is number one. While continuing to be on this framework, I think it's a fantastic framework. We have on sustainability, on digital, and now with the AI Act, with the CHIP Act, and all the frameworks are in place. Second dimension is how do we ensure that the feedback from the industry is taken into account so that we are able to quickly adapt what we have to do so that we don't lose the competitive advantage. While data protection is a classic example of why it became the model regulation for the world, but then when it came to competitiveness, because most businesses today, the digital businesses today and tomorrow are going to be built on foundation of data. So when you apply rules to one set of people and somebody else operates without those rules, then you lose that competitive advantage. So there is a very fine balance between creating a regulation at the same time allowing for room for innovation to happen. and also to maintain some level of equivalence. Otherwise, in the globally connected businesses, that is going to be a challenge. So that is the second topic. So I would say it's all about execution, agility. How do you provide, and then competitiveness? How do you ensure that there is competitiveness for this market?
Thank you. So building on that point, Sapta, you've been in this marketplace for some time now.
Yeah.
You've experienced the markets you've worked in Europe and in the edges of Europe, but also globally. But from a perspective of experiencing working within Europe and in delivering services, what are the main challenges that you face or have experienced in terms of the marketplace or how Europe operates from your perspective? And it might be helpful for our listeners and viewers just to explain the Tata Consultancy Services model. What is it you do as a way of explaining that answer?
Yeah, absolutely. So TCS is primarily a technology services company. We work across the spectrum of services from helping our large customers build their technology estate, to transform their technology estate, and also to operate their technology footprint. The second dimension is we run the core and the processes for some of our customers. And then we also do a lot of work on engineering. So we are more like a full services company which is able to engage with large companies in different parts of their organization, whether it is IT, whether it is the engineering, whether it is the business processes. The way we do it is we bring industry-specific knowledge as well as knowledge of the specific processes and technologies, and deliver it through a global model where Europe is able to access the best of the talent that is available across the world to serve the customers. So we normally have teams based in the various European countries. We have teams based in the nearshore locations in Europe. Then again, they're distributed across the globe, with in India being one of our major centers across the world. So European enterprises are able to access the best of capabilities and competencies in a globalized environment. And if you look at TCS's operation itself, we have been on a growth path in Europe. It's been one of our fastest growing regions for more than a decade. Primarily, our challenges are, I would not say we have been are not as serious as the challenges that our customers face.
Right.
Because we, being in the knowledge space, for us, mobility is very important, talent mobility. And I think Europe has done reasonably well in various countries to enable that. And I think there is more happening, and that's going to help us with mobility. The second dimension is about data flows and ensuring that there are secure data flows, because if you're operating in a global environment, you need to have a very secure ability to access information, but in a very secure manner. And security is very important for us. I think we have been operating in a very secure environment, that's fine. But the key challenges we see are mainly what we see with our customers, our clients, whether it's a bank, whether it is a manufacturer, whether it is a pharma. And that, from a Europe perspective, one of the key dimensions is the regulation and how companies need to adapt to this regulation. And underpinning their response is always a technology infrastructure, because any regulation always calls for a significant level of data flows and reporting and analysis. Right. And the enterprises, all of this is embedded in the enterprise technology architecture. And with the increasing number of regulations coming in, and most of them leaning into the future, we need to go and relook at the architectures which are there in the enterprises. And it's not a simple thing, because the architectures of technology architectures and data architectures of large corporations have been built over decades. Right. So we now need to go and reimagine them. And so, for example, if for example, if CBAM comes in, there is a specific reporting that is required. Yeah. There's a specific way of capturing that information that is required. Okay, let me create that technology, the data architecture to do that. Yes. But tomorrow we have we have another regulation, which is CSRD, for example. There is another set of information that is required to be provisioned. Now, enterprises really need to build a more of an end-to-end view and a complete data architecture, which will help them not take this as a burden and a one-off activity to create these, regulatory compliance. Instead, they need to build a very robust architecture for the future.
Sure.
And in order to do that, they need to engage with the regulators to demonstrate what is needed to do to respond to this, and somehow create a more futuristic vision, so that it doesn't become a heavy exercise to every regulation you need to go and pull up something and create a new new system or a new architecture. So that is, I would say, the key challenge that most of our customers are facing today.
Which you don't have an easy solution to, because you can't, as a technology company, you can't simply create a reset button and say, there you go, guys and girls, and then we put everything else in the mix and hey presto. But the issue is, it's the I suppose, piecemeal, ad hoc introduction of bits of legislation that are either to protect the consumer, but also to make sure that we've got something that's protecting the integrity of business, but also trying to create competition. But in doing that, there's multiple and varied regulatory practices which you as a provider have to suddenly redo the back end of for an organization. Is that right?
Very large companies,
yes. And I suppose the issue there, if you're, this is my words, not yours, obviously, is that the Commission could do well to speak to people like you and others, large entities, at the point at which they're thinking through the regulatory framework. Because what we've been saying as a think tank is that you need to bring the private sector in much more earlier in the development of solutions, rather than seeing them only as a profit maker, because sometimes that is the case, but the CEOs that we've spoken to are much more interested in saying, let's get the thing right first time. And is that what you'd be asking for? Is it bring people like yourselves in earlier to establish a framework for the future for digitalization?
Yeah, I would say that the regulators and the Commission have been very good at engaging the different industry groups. But now I think that we in the last few years we are getting engaged more and more, because the whole technology infrastructure and the digital infrastructure is becoming one of the most prominent requirements for us to get it right. And that has been recognized, which is good. And now we need to put that dimension also in the early consultation process as to, okay, if I have to do this, what does it mean? How do I simplify the way people comply to this regulation? And how do I, not make it a burden for people in this? And also, how do I make it more harmonized across various regulations? I think the consultation is on, but we are the new people who have arrived, because it's all everything that any enterprise needs to do needs to be done with the digital infrastructure, and we are now coming into the picture.
So on that note, then explain to me what your views and thoughts are about how you, as a provider, and like many others from this industry, could work more effectively with the public sector in moving us through what's going to be the biggest transition we're going to go through our lives. Because on the one hand, all our listeners and viewers will know AI is operating at a level, and its agility and doing things that we don't even know about yet. And we know that climate is accelerating, the impact of climate change is accelerating. And we need to be able to make a digital green transition for Europe, but also the world.
Yes.
And what would you like? Tell us what you think should be not the magic solution, but how can you work better and more closely with government, public sector, to get a just digital green transition?
So in terms of collaboration, like I said, we are the new people in this dialogue, because digital is at the forefront of every discussion we have. So first thing that we are doing as TCS in the most recent past is we are engaging extensively with the various directorates of the Commission to create awareness of what is the technology aspect of anything that you do. What does it mean? What is the kind of technologies that are evolving, and how they would impact the kind of work each directorate is doing. So we are doing that through 3 different things. We are having sessions with them to showcase some of the technology trends and what's happening in the world, and how it's influencing the various industries. That is one. Second is obviously the common method, which is basically to give position papers on certain regulations when they are put up. So we are giving our inputs to that as much as we can from our vantage point. And the third is we are having one-to-one meetings where we are discussing with them here, listening to them, and then in fact my visit now is mainly to meet several of the people in the regulatory framework, and to discuss with them and engage with them and share our point of view. So this is the way we are engaging.
Right.
But when it comes to the digital and green transition, there is one role. This is the role of sharing information. But we are also doing our part, because when we have to go into a just transition, we have picked 2 areas. One is climate, then the second is skills, because the digital there is a green transition, there is a digital transition. We said in green transition, how do we use the power of technology and innovation to accelerate the sustainability goals of each of our enterprises, which can be, many of these can be solved through technology, or at least accelerated by applying technology. And that we are doing at a large scale. So that remains one of the key focus areas. The second, which is also an important area, is in the just transition, is skills. And this is a very significant area. And we as a company are one of the fundamental beliefs and also the models of our companies, we have a large-scale ability to continuously reskill and skill our own people, because we are in the technology world. Every couple of years, we have to renew our talent. And we are seeing how do we take these practices into our customers, or also into the society in Europe, and help build the talent of the future. It could be somebody coming out of a university who needs to become more adept at dealing with the reality of digital technology, or it could be somebody who's been in the workforce for 20 years, 25 years, who needs to now kind of reinvent themselves to go reskill themselves to be relevant in the digital society. So for both, we have programs and we are engaging ourselves. We also signed the EU Digital Skills Compact, and we are participating in that process. So this is the way we are actually participating. Apart from giving advice, we are also doing stuff to ensure that our customers and we are able to contribute to this journey.
In a way, could we look forward to a time when Tata, TCS, will be providing technology transfer or technology skills development hubs across Europe? Is that the kind of future we're looking at?
So right now, the way we are looking at it is we are focusing mainly on the entry level, 2 types of skills. We are doing it as let's say a CSR, or as a community responsibility. We are not doing it as a commercial exercise. So we have a very well-established program globally where we go and train young school children on programming robots and getting them oriented to the digital world. And they do. The kids are extremely excited, and we now are scaling it at a very large level. And
in Europe.
In Europe. So last year we did we did, numbers are not big. We did 1,000 children. I think we are going to do 6,000 this year. And that is going to scale. And that is across countries. And there we are trying to work with the public, because most of the education in Europe is public sector. So we are trying to build trust in them, saying that we are really interested in building these skills of the future. The second one we are doing in Europe is we are hiring from the universities and taking them through our program, which is the TCS has a very unique program of taking university graduates and training them into digitally skilled people who can not just be digitally skilled, but they can also do work in digital space. So that's a program which is going on for the last 6 years. It also covers Europe. So that is one dimension. How do we ensure that we start early and build the whole supply chain of talent, the talent supply chain? The second dimension is we have several of our people in Europe. We have taken on board from other companies as part of the various transactions we have done. We are working on reskilling them. These are people who have 20 years of experience, 25 years, have done more or less the same thing for many years.
Yes.
So now we are kind of training them and reskilling them. It's a large change management exercise, but we have a fundamental belief that people can always be taught new technologies.
Indeed.
And there is nothing like, our philosophy is that there is nothing like a legacy people. There's only legacy technology. So we are able to train, reskill them with our belief and also the training infrastructure that we have in place. And I think for Europe, both are needed.
Yes.
You need to build new talent that comes into the workforce. Apart from people like from TCS, some of them come from India and others. That is also one of the dimensions of talent value chain. But then you also need to reskill a large section of the population into the digital decade. And the future, digital future, I would say, not digital decade.
It's interesting you're saying that, because when you think of TCS as a brand, what you just described would not come across. And it's great to hear. I'm glad we have this opportunity for you to explain that, because I think many of our listeners and viewers won't know the capacity and the capability of what you're doing in terms of community digital empowerment.
Yes.
Because that's what I see it as, is
Absolutely,
that being able to skill up people of different ages, reskill, and making sure you're taking a birth to, older age approach to it. But let's come back to that in a minute. There's something that we're doing as my final wrap-up question to you will be about the renewed social contract that we're working on as an organization. But before we go there, my penultimate question is about adaptation and adoption. You know as well as I do that a lot of Europe in the SME sector and big business are lagging behind the US and elsewhere in terms of adoption and adaptation to AI, big data, using the kind of technology, modern technologies that are available. And SMEs are important because they're the bulwark. They're the bulwark of the EU economy, and we're only at 66%, if that, when it should be 80% by now. So we're seeing a massive gap. What can you do to help?
Yeah. See, in general, what I have observed with the competitiveness that we need to have of the industry in Europe is the competitiveness in the new world is driven by data centricity, customer centricity, where you have a very strong focus on customers, and third is a software centric thinking, and instead of more a hardware thinking. Because if you look at the value that has been created and that is going to get created in the future, it is all based on ability to have a complete access and full visibility to the customer, have a full control of the data that is there, and mastery of software. And those are the three areas which I think puts people at a disadvantage. We can have a company which has got 150 years of expertise in a specific manufacturing technology, but now all of that is getting reimagined into the future, and it's going to be software driven, and you need to know your customer because you need to maintain that intimacy with the customer, and you need to own the data and manage the data better. So as far as the mid-sized companies are concerned, I think though we are not so big working with them, we are trying to participate in forums where they are there and try to give them the orientation towards how they can adapt themselves. As a matter of fact, we participate in for example, in Germany, the mid-sized companies are called the Mittelstand. So we work with some of these institutions to foster this kind of knowledge. And there are platforms being built so that they don't have to create everything themselves with the whole software as a service and platform as a service models. They can access that. But I think they need to get more education and orientation because the competitive advantage lies in these three.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. And also, I suppose one might say, and we've said that it can't be just the role of the private sector, because if we believe the SME economy is the bulwark of the future, the EU needs to incentivize it and actually create tax incentives or different kind of voucher systems to improve adaptation and adoption of new practices. But let me just, before my final question to you, just touch upon security for a moment.
Yeah.
You know that security has become the number one strategic priority globally.
Absolutely.
And for a company like you, people like, we saw what happened to Huawei, we've seen what's happened to other companies, where the sense of privacy, the security, integrity of data, sovereignty of data is major. What's your view on the approach you take to that?
See, there are two topics. One is on security, the other is on data protection. I have to say that on both, we attach the highest levels of importance. As a matter of fact, in data protection, this journey has been there with us even before the GDPR came into effect. Germany had its own regulation, so we were already operating with that. And on just, I would say, last week, we have been awarded from Picasso the Award of Excellence in Data Protection. And that was in London we got awarded. And we are very happy to say that, because it has been a very long journey to build excellence in data protection. And to be on par with the best is not that easy. Yeah. And we are happy that we have reached that. And in security, for us, it's a very enhanced level of expectation, because we work with some of the leading corporations across the world. We work on critical systems. Therefore, we apply whatever is the best of the best standards. So there are standards which are, ISO standards. Most of our centers operate with those standards. Then we have customer-specific standards. We have regulatory standards. We apply whatever is the highest level. So we more or less have the best of what you can get in security. I'm talking about cyber security, and as well, of course, physical security is a different topic.
Yeah, it's mostly cyber. That's the biggest issue.
And then not only are we doing it for ourselves, we, with our cyber security expertise, are helping our customers, some of the leading corporations, kind of strengthen their cyber postures. With the various things, you have to strengthen your identity and access management. You need to strengthen your privileged access management. We need to create threat management centers. We have a threat management center for our customers based in Europe. We need to run security operations centers. We also need to be prepared in case there is a contingency. For example, many companies in the world are getting exposed to ransomware.
Absolutely.
And how do we prevent ransomware attacks? But more importantly, how are we going to create a resilient business, exactly, so that we don't kind of let the business stop when such an attack happens? So these are some of the dimensions. Then we go to another order of magnitude, where there are countries which have assessed the security considerations in their specific context, and created scenarios of what happens if my country, for example, is cut off completely from the world, and how do I sustain my business, critical businesses, exactly, critical infrastructure. Now, this is very different order of magnitude. So you don't have any connectivity. How do you do that? So we are now looking at the next level of business continuity and disaster recovery mechanisms to ensure that we are staying at the leading edge of this. And there's, of course, a lot of work we do, but this is what we do. We secure our business. Yes. We are also working with our customers in their own businesses.
Now, I don't think many of our viewers and listeners would know about that end of the work that you're doing. And it would be, and obviously, I know from our perspective, we're definitely going to include yourselves in our tabletop exercise. So we annually run a scenario exercise where what might happen if the entire a network of bigger cities were hacked and suddenly city systems went down. What would you do? But what we do is we bring the private sector alongside, because most of the disaster planning scenarios are done privately behind locked doors in government, which we think makes no sense, and actually because 70% of infrastructure in Europe and the world is owned by the private sector. So it makes no sense whatsoever. So it's very good to hear this. And so really good that you're future imagining these kind of things, because that's exactly what's required, because we know the rate at which there is hacking happening, ransomware, etc., and so forth, and the kind of protection security we need in place. My final question to you, Sapta, is it's building on that comment you made about looking at the future. A future framework for digitalisation. Are you in TCS really thinking about presenting a different kind of digital future for Europe, from public services to private sector actors to innovation to being able to run systems and infrastructure digitally, but in a different way? So rather than when you described earlier, you respond to consultations, you meet with chief people, etc. But are you planning, are you doing something which will look at a digitalized economy for the future of Europe?
So, one topic which we never did not discuss, and that's the most important one right now, is the whole evolution. I would not call it evolution, the accelerated, adoption of AI,
Yes.
artificial intelligence.
Indeed.
And in a way, I would say, in an intelligent enterprise, which is obviously given that the enterprise has to be sustainable, because sustainability, I would say, is a minimum criteria. So in an intelligent enterprise, there is a set of principles that we need to adopt. One, of course, is to have a mastery of the data. Then you need to create responsible and the right algorithms so that they are following the rules which are given by the regulators. Sometimes even go beyond that and driven by the values that the company has, so that you follow and ensure that you have that. And then where innovation is more or less a continuous process which is embedded, because we cannot, if you look at the changes that have happened in the last 2 years post-COVID, almost every few months we are dealing with a new change or new threat, whether it's technology, whether it's geopolitical,
Precisely.
whether it is energy and so on. So enterprises need to be more resilient and agile. So these are some of the principles, I would say, that go into any things that we define for the future. An intelligent enterprise, which obviously puts AI as default, because it's not very far that we will get into AI-centric enterprises.
Absolutely.
Which have certain principles. Sustainability, it should be a kind of a basic minimum that everybody has to operate with. And then innovation as a pillar, so that you are resilient. We are not just stopping somewhere. We continuously innovate, and that's broadly the principles that would be there for any enterprise that's going forward. So
thank you. It sounds like a very good menu of, or rather a framework. I'd call it an excellent framework for the future of how you digitalize your economy. Because as you say, resilience has to be the outcome. But you need these basic foundation blocks of, a very sophisticated AI-centric approach, the sustainability and innovation combining itself. So thank you for sharing that with us. We look forward to your success and future, and we look forward to engaging you more and working more in partnership with you over the future, especially when we think about security and scenario planning for the future. But also, I think a company like yourself, if as you said, you're open to this. I love the fact that these hubs for teaching and training are really important. It's not just CSR; it's about your contribution as a private sector player to a good society, and those values are important to us, for all of us in Europe. So we look forward to working with you on that, and you playing a leading role. Because what you do need in the industry sector is you need players like yourselves to be able to show what's possible so that others can follow too. So thank you very much for being with us.
It has been a pleasure, and you're welcome to join us in our innovation hubs in Europe, in Amsterdam as well as in Paris, where you can see some of this in action, and you are welcome to join us.
You heard that. We're going to take him up on that offer. We'll organize something actually in next year to see if we can create some sort of, like, I suppose, expertise exchange. We have European leaders, we have young people, etc., and see what we can make of doing that. So you heard that first here. Thank you all for watching and listening, and I hope you found that as stimulating as I did. In this, I learned a lot more about what a company like TCS does, but also it demonstrates that we need more of these conversations with industry leaders, so we understand better not only their value base but also their capability, but also thinking about the future. And as we know, foresight is going to be key, and its use is going to be key if we're going to make sense of the multiple crises that lie ahead of us. Thank you for watching and listening, and take care and look after yourself.
Thank you.